Alright, and here we go for video number 3, but chapter 2. I tried this one earlier, but I felt really weird trying to read it with Ellie. So, solo, here we go. And yeah. So chapter 2 of Everything is Awful is titled On the Trauma of Having or Not Having Hair. I was born with a freakish amount of hair, right? Or so they tell me. I don't really like to talk about the day I was born, because it's the first and only time I touched a vagina. I like to pretend I have a clean record. And yes, technically my picture got taken right after I slid out. But you can't really tell how much hair a baby has from a picture taken seconds after it emerges from amniotic juices. Based on the sole surviving photograph I have of that day, whatever hair I had was caked in what looks like thick strawberry jam, except it wasn't strawberry jam. It was bits of placenta, because they don't even dry you all the way off before they snap the picture that will one day end up in on your birthday cakes. They should really wait until the placenta dries and flakes off before they take the picture. So no, I don't know exactly how much hair I had when I was born, but my mother likes to brag that I had a lot of it, which is kind of a weird thing to gloat about if you ask me. I don't like seeing a single strand of hair on my dinner plate. I can't imagine an entire ball of it growing in my uterus for 9 months and emerging from my body, sentient and screaming for food, and then be like, yeah, I made that. And now I'm going to let it live in my house for 20 years. In fact, in 8th grade health class, the most sacred of American public school institutions, wherein children are first informed that hair will start growing from places previously unheard of in life, I distinctly remember watching The Miracle of Birth, a horror documentary in which a Wisconsin woman with a bad perm is freed of an alien that's been swelling in her abdomen. It astounds me to this day that we force 13-year-olds to watch a woman giving birth on VHS tape and consider this sexual education. I barely even knew what a vagina looked like on a regular day, let alone the day a screaming mass of hair decides to claw out of it. But that's not the point. The point is, I had to watch that mess. I remember viscerally gagging during that scene when it happens. Not because of the miracle of it all, but because of the sheer amount of hair that's involved in the whole thing. Babies are covered in it. Vaginas are covered in it. I tried to avoid looking at it straight on by peering above my glasses and letting my blurry vision dull my ability to see what was happening. But I still remember, fuzzy eyesight be damned, the angry, throbbing ball of fur emerging from between the screaming woman's legs. It was like watching a ball of rats crawl through the hole of a sewer drain during a mudslide. To make matters worse, my health teacher, who also happened to be my gym teacher, my history teacher, and the football coach, because American public schools are masters of efficiency, was a widower whose wife died in childbirth because, by some freak medical anomaly, a hair got in her bloodstream when she was in labor and murdered her to death. I'm not making this up. The bulk of my sexual education came from a man whose life was literally ruined by hair. And that's not even mentioning the pictures of hairy, gonorrhea-stricken genitals he showed us on the first day of class. I guess my mother didn't know that hair skills, or maybe that hair kills. Big difference. Or maybe she was happy simply knowing that my hair as didn't murder her on the way out. Because she still talks about walking down the hospital hallway to the tiny deli counter they kept the babies in, and being able to and spot me right away, my wispy ginger hair blowing in the wind. Little did she know that wispy ginger hair would go on to ruin my life. This may go without saying, but I don't like hair. Hair is disgusting and generally a terrible inconvenience. It collects grease and dirt particles of old crusty food. It gathers in clumps, a unit of measurement that has never been used to describe anything good in this world. You know what else gathers in clumps? Herpes. It clogs my shower drain. It mixes with toothpaste to congeal on the sides of my sink. It piles up in the thickets beneath my furniture and comes scurrying out like tumbleweeds the second I have someone over. And let's be real, it's far outlasted its evolutionary purpose. Cavemen needed hair to keep warm, and I can only imagine, given their relative abundance of free time, to have something to aimlessly braid between hump sessions. But let's face it, I have central heating and the internet, so whatever value hair added to the cave people's lives seems to have been generally satisfied. Apparently, anthropologists think humans lost our cave hair when we gained the ability to walk on 2 legs. and needed to better regulate our body temperatures for long-distance runs. Considering I have never and will never run any long distances in my life, once again, hair's purpose is unnecessary. Worst of all, hair is needy. My hair has never been longer than a few inches, and yet I have used approximately every product ever made in the entirety of history to attempt to wield power over it. A list that grows every year as they invent new ways to get me to spend my money on chemicals. In the 90s, there was just gel, mousse, or hairspray, and you put it on your frosted tips, and that was the end of it. But now, hell has expanded, and there are pastes, pomades, waxes, putties, glues, clays, creams, and crayons. Difference is unclear. Lotions, oils, exfoliating scalp treatments, grooming serums, and I'm not fucking around with you on this one, quicksand. And we haven't even gotten to the endless varieties of conditioners, the function of which I still don't entirely understand, and shampoos, which you can now apparently use in dry form, a luxury I refuse to believe actually works. And this is just the hair on your head. There are creams, foams, tonics you're supposed to use before you shave, the moisturizers, oils, and lotions you're supposed to use after you shave. And of course, you have to get a shaver, or actually two shavers, unless you want to shave the hair around your mouth with the same instrument you use to shave the hair around your testicles. I wasn't ready for that one. Oh, and also, one of those weird shaped shavers that go up your nostrils and inside your ears. Possibly one of those contraptions you can use to shave the hair on your back. And tweezers for everything in between. And despite all of this, my hair still looks like it belongs on the head of a politician who tries to solicit sex in an airport bathroom. Oh, and don't even get me started on TSA's crusade against hair products on airlines. What havoc could I possibly wreak on an airplane with a bottle of ultra-firm holding spray? Answer me that, TSA people. You know who had awful hair? Osama bin Laden. By making me throw away my conditioner, you're just playing into his master plan. This is what he wanted. In fairness, I am a man, and my struggle with hair is but a fraction of the battle that women are expected to wage daily. My haircuts cost less than a McDonald's value meal, and theoretically, I could just decide to stop caring about it one day, and everybody would assume I was preparing for my breakout role as guy who sniffs paint behind a Denny's. And of course, as a white guy, my hair carries none of this cultural baggage that people of color reckon with every day. Nobody has tried to reach out and touch my hair on the train, and generally speaking, nobody has questioned how often I wash it. All things considered, I have it relatively easy. But still, I don't like hair. I don't like the hair on my head, or the hair in my armpits, or the hair that grows in all the other places. That hair has absolutely no reason growing other than to serve as itchy, sweaty decoration. I hate that I have to wash it and condition it and cut it and style it and make sure there are no bugs making babies in it. I hate that I can't get rid of it because my skull is the shape of a peeled yam and my skin is oily. If I went fully bald, my scalp would look like an angry jack-o'-lantern. I hate that I have to brush it every time I leave my apartment because I look like I'm plotting to steal Christmas if I don't. And I hate that it has the audacity to make me care for it, to grow it, to water, to pet it every day for almost 3 loving decades. And now it's finally deciding to go away, strand by strand, refusing to come back. Perhaps it finally caught on to the fact that I don't like it very much, and the unilateral decision to abandon me en masse, but that's the typical hair behavior. It gives you hell and demands it all, and then it leaves you the second you start getting used to it. My dependency on hair started before I can even remember I was born, with the comb-over of a televangelist, and forces beyond my control decided to make this the only haircut that would ever work with my body type and facial features long before I could possibly have any say in the matter. For one disastrous week in 1999, I attempted to take matters in my own hands and experimented with the center part, and my entire life nearly fell to pieces. The order of the universe continues to depend on my hair being parted in the same spot it was first parted by Moses himself, which is exactly 30% across my scalp, from left to right. But wait, let's do some magic. Magic. Baby magic! She's just here now! Hey Ellie, how's it going? Should we get back to reading for mommy? What the hell's yeah? Right? Okay, here we go. Every morning of my childhood, for as long as I can remember, I woke up to my mother with long comb and a spray bottle full of water. She would wet my hair until I could feel the tiny droplets dripping down my temples, and then part it in 2 or 3 short strokes, always in the same spot. Then, while it was still damp, she would pick up an oversized aerosol can and thoroughly douse my head in a gallon of Mega Hold hairspray until my hair turned into virtual stone. I spent most of my adolescence with the shiny, immovable hair of a pinstriped 80s stockbroker. In almost every picture of me as a child, it's almost impossible to tell I had ginger hair at all, because it was covered in so much product it looked like the color of wet clay. It had the stiffness of titanium, and it soon became part of my public identity. Classmates would gather around me on the playground during recess and take turns knocking on my hair like they were knocking on a slab of concrete. On weekends, the local blacksmith would come to our house and use my hair to forge wrought iron into various decorative and metal fixtures. I once won a battering contest against a very formidable ram. Of course, as with many well-publicized strengths, vulnerabilities were right around the corner, and my enemies knew this well. My brother, who is 6 years older than I am, had plenty of time to reckon with his hair journey long before I came along. A true child of the 90s, he was far more adventurous with using hair as a form of expressing inner angst, and cycled through countless iterations of spikes, color tips, and bleaches, including a brief foray into pink hair dye that nearly tore our family apart. What are you doing? He insisted on dyeing his head the color of chewed bubblegum. Mom and Dad insisted that any such action was akin to joining one of those cults where you have to drown a kitten to get in. He did it anyway. My parents had to kill a cat just to prove their point. Now, many years later, he's given up on taming his hair entirely, opting instead for the shaggy, unkept mop of an unwieldy beard. He looks very much like the kind of person who goes hunting for game with his bare hands, and has bitten directly into the still beating deer heart. In many ways, the disparity in our hair choices is emblematic of the difference we exhibited more broadly. He preferred the more rebellious, Hot Topic-inspired way of life, and I preferred the more gentle lifestyle of door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesman. To say we did not particularly mesh would be an understatement, and yet I insisted on being included in whatever activities he partook in, per my contractual duties as the younger sibling. When he inevitably exploded, which was often, I was very annoying. No retaliatory target was as appealing as my hair. It was, after all, the thing I seemingly cared most about, and representative of my general stodginess and infuriating nature. If I were a terrorist looking to inflict the most symbolic damage on my annoying 8-year-old self, I would have chosen my hair too. By then, I learned how to wet it, comb it, and spray it. Baby's gone again. Like magic. Let's get back to reading. By then, I learned how to wet it, comb it, and spray it myself, and spent a considerable amount of time in the bathroom every morning, getting every strand just right so as to be best prepared for my daily regimen of aggressive pestering. My hair was precious to me. I don't remember what I did to piss him off this particular time. We were outside in the middle of summer. I might have taken his bike or stepped on his foot or sprayed his back too many times with the water gun I'd gotten for my birthday. But whatever it was, it sent him into a wild-eyed rage. He came at me. I screamed at an octave only birds could hear. He grabbed me by the shoulders and, taking a deep breath, spit a wad of chewing gum he'd been chomping on directly onto my scalp. Now you'd think, given the amount of hairspray I'd covered it with, that my hair would have been protected by a sort of chemical force field, that the gum would have hit the hard surface and bounced right off, and I had been free to continue my pestering, emboldened by my brother's failed revenge plot. But you'd be fucking wrong. Because of course it didn't bounce right off. It fucking stuck. That's what gum does. I figured at first that if it had stuck on only lightly, I could reach in and pluck it right out, like picking a grape out of a shag carpet. This is the best metaphor I could think of, and I'm sorry. Backup options included like fetching a hard-boiled egg from a patch of weeds, like fishing a piece of orange chicken from a pile of hay. Naturally, my attempts to pick it out merely exasperated the situation, and I ran wailing to my mother, whose own attempts proved even less effective, perhaps because my body was convulsing in dramatic sobs as her fingers spread the gum into more and more clumps. If you've ever tried cleaning shit out of a dog that has hair, you know exactly what we were dealing with here. Every time you try to wipe, the dog moves, and the shit somehow multiplies, until it's spread into a far larger, even shittier patch of destruction. I'm sure there are plenty of mommy bloggers today who know the exact mixture of peanut butter, vegetable oil, and angel tears you need to get gum out of a kid's hair without resorting to the nuclear option. But this was 1998, and all we had was a dial-up connection. We weren't about to wait 30 minutes for the computer to connect to the internet so we could figure out how to get gum out of hair the fancy way. So having protested that I would rather live with the mangled, patchy hairstyle of an off-brand clown than shave it all off, my mother proceeded to perform spot surgery and literally hack the gum from my head until every sticky trace had been excised. We spent the next several days traveling from one suburban supercuts to another. At every stop, my mother would spin me around, point to the spot where she'd taken an axe to my skull, and look expectantly at each stylist to see who could conjure enough magic to make me whole again. But the desecration had been too deep. My crown had been broken, and there was no fixing the damage that had been inflicted on my soul. It probably grew back in like a week, because kids' hair grows like mold on bread. But I learned a valuable lesson that day. Hair can never be trusted. No matter how religiously you wash it, condition it, wet it, part it, and hairspray it. The second it gets the chance, it'll gleefully ruin your entire goddamn life. One chopped, gummy patch at a time. As I got older, the children who once knocked on my hardened hair grew into judgmental teenagers, eager to pounce on anything even slightly unordinary. I abandoned my hairspray in favor of the more relaxed, no-frills vibe of a 13-year-old with split ends. Which is to say, I spent most of high school with hair that had the consistency of straw, because it had been blow-dried to within an inch of its life every single morning. But it worked for me. Of course, my hair, knowing full well that I'd found some sense of equilibrium in life, couldn't let well enough alone, and began conspiring with my hormones to bring life new hellish meaning. Hair began appearing in places it had never been before, bringing with it fresh new odors and itchiness and discomfort. As a Bellassai, I'm at the end of a long line of Italian men and women with body hair thicker than lush forest moss. I used to lie awake at night and wonder why we couldn't have turned out like the oiled, hairless men in the Dolce & Gabbana ads. I'm sure they never had to shave their necks beneath the collars of their shirts or tweeze obsessively between their eyebrows or brush the fur on their toe knuckles. I bet their shower drains didn't look like they were trying to flush the decaying carcass of a trampled wildebeest. When my father took off his shirt, it looked like he covered himself in glue and rolled around on the floor of a veterinarian's office. I used to wonder how he even fully dried himself off after swimming in the pool. And that is what I inherited. My hair didn't grow normally, though. The hair on my face didn't all decide to arrive at once, at the same, even length. It grew one at a time, starting with one very ambitious strand. Oh, hey, Brett, I'm reading to you right now. Would you like to listen to me read to you while reading to you? Listening now?
I can't believe you're a teacher.
Yay!
Am I going to be on the internet? It's not normally what I'm on the internet for.
I'm going to keep reading now. I lost my paragraph even. Wow. There we go. It grew one at a time, starting with only one very ambitious strand that grew from dead center of my cheek and coiled before I noticed it. It was long enough that a girl at school reached out and physically plucked it from my face. I know, right? Before she said, "Oh, look who's becoming a man!" An event that continues to haunt me to this day. But mostly because she had no idea if maybe I wanted to keep that whisker as a souvenir or if I'd been growing it out as an experiment. When I eventually had enough hair to shave, I pressed way too hard with the electric shaver and had my first lesson in the searing pain of razor burn, which is just another one of hair's backhanded gifts. Hair ushers you into adulthood, welcomes you with your new responsibilities of maturity, and then, when you finally muster the confidence to deal with it, takes a layer of your skin clean off on its way out. Sometime around my 22nd birthday, when I was first realized that hair on my head was beginning to thin, I noticed it, as you notice most things in life, in the reflection of my head on the blank screen of my phone. At first I thought it might be just the angle. Nobody looks like they have much hair when they're looking at themselves from beneath a triple chin. But when I brought up my grip, I saw that the hair at the front of my head seemed just a little less thick than usual. My hair had always been thick enough that the stylist at Supercuts was forced to use thinning shears just to work with it. But perhaps because of the amount of chemicals I'd put in my hair since birth, or the aggressive way I combed it every morning, or my general lack of healthy diet and exercise regimen, but probably not. It was undoubtedly starting to grow thinner. My mother blamed the woman at Supercuts for her indiscriminate use of the thinning shears. But I suspect she was just angry. I started going to a salon rather than to have her cut my hair in the laundry room, which with the same scissors she used to groom the dog, and was looking for a reason to prove me wrong. She had cut my hair until I was nearly 20 years old, and the betrayal she felt when I finally announced I'd be going to the strip mall beauty parlor reverberated for months. She still blames those Supercuts thinning shears from my receding hairline, despite the fact that it's receding in the same fashion as my father's and my father's before him.
I have that to look forward to.
In what some might call a pattern of male baldness. It's been a handful of years since then, and I'm glad to say that I still have a fair amount of hair on my head. And for the curious, a thriving amount of hair everywhere else. Wink. But here's the hair's final twist of the night. I'm now an adult gay man at a point when the hair is of premium importance in life. After all, in a gay community, for better or worse, hair defines everything.
Yes.
It is... What? It is virtually the single most ubiquitous character in the gay taxonomy. There are twinks, bears, otters, cubs, wolves, all defined one way or another by the presence or lack of hair. I fit neatly into none of these categories, which means if I ever do porn, they won't even know what part of the website to put me in. For the
Kids are listening.
For the record, if I had to categorize myself, I'd probably most closely resemble a bear, but like Paddington, because I always keep my clothes on, so the porn thing will have to be artsy, like for guys who get off on watching other guys eat meatball sandwiches.
Oh.
The gay community has had a long obsession with grooming, and for many, a proper professional gay needs to be waxed, shaved, and styled perfection, all before getting out of bed. Beards, which are now the defining symbol of gay hotness, should be trimmed and shaped to emulate no less than the Spartans themselves. And of course, manscaping is an absolute must, and body hairs of any kind should be expunged besides perfect decorative topiaries above the genitals, beneath the armpits, and along the arms. Failure to meet any of these speculations will result in the immediate destruction of one's gay card. So now, with a mop of thinning ginger fur, I must endure hair's latest streak of sabotage. It wasn't enough to plague me throughout childhood, to cast a dark, itchy shadow over puberty, or to bring home bugs. At one time we went swimming and... Blew that line so bad. I'll try again. It wasn't enough to plague me through childhood, to cast a dark, itchy shadow over puberty, or to bring home bugs at one time we went swimming in an unfamiliar lake. It looms over me still, now armed with the sharpened knife of the gaze piercing judgment, staring back at me in the mirror every morning with an ever wispier glare. Maybe I'll just wear wigs. And as a reminder, this is the second chapter in Everything is Awful, a book by, damn it Claire, Matt Bellassai. Bye now!